Hello and welcome. My name is John Dexter. Today is a little bit of a not my normal videos where I show some of my images and editing. This is more of a technical video. Now, I purchased this Nikon DF about 6 months ago. I'm not going to go into the camera because I know it's a very controversial camera. You either love them or you hate them. I personally absolutely adore it. I think it's a beautiful camera. But it's not about this camera per se. But I found I had a little quirk with it. And that was that I was finding if you took an image in a live view, I was finding it was a different exposure to if I took it through the actual viewfinder. And it was actually about +1 EV stop through the live view, and I thought that's really strange. Now I found it was doing it in a manual mode and aperture priority mode. It didn't make any difference. And before everybody writes in and says oh, you should cover up the eyepiece because it bleeds light in through there, the eyepiece was actually covered, so it definitely wasn't that. So I've also got a Nikon D4, so I thought I'd give that a go with the same lens. And I was finding that was just the same. Not as bad. I was probably getting about 2/3 of a stop difference on that, but even so, I was still getting a different exposure. Now I know that the light in a live view is monitored or set on the actual sensor itself, whereas through the viewfinder there's a different sensor on the viewfinder. So I thought that could be where the discrepancy was. Now I really wasn't too fussed about it because it's no big deal. You can either dial in a bit of exposure compensation, or obviously if you're taking it in manual, you either adjust your shutter speed or aperture to compensate for it. So it wasn't a big deal, but I was a little bit worried that there was something wrong with the camera, which worried me a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this up on the tripod now, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean that is happening. And at the end of it, I'm going to tell you, after a lot of investigation, the conclusion that I came to. Okay, I hope you can see that okay. I've had to come into my workshop because it's a very bright sunny day outside and you'd have a job seeing the monitor. So first of all, my settings, this is a 17-35 lens. It's ISO 100. I've got the aperture set at 5.6, and as you can see in live view mode it is the 60th of a second. Can you see that? Now I'm now going to turn it to looking through the viewfinder, and it is now 100th of a second. So you have a difference of between 60th of a second and 100th of a second, which I think is probably 2/3 of a stop, or at least certainly 1/3 of a stop. So I'm going to turn this back to live view, and as you can see it is 1/60th of a second as opposed to 100th of a second. So there you have it. Not a great difference, but difference nonetheless. So on that assumption, if I took an image through the viewfinder at 100th of a second and took the same image in live view at 60th of a second, the live view image would be more overexposed. So what I'm going to do now is go back to the computer, and I'm going to hopefully give you an explanation as to why this is happening. Okay, now I will explain why I'm looking at the D800 in a minute. But you see the problem that I had with the camera, and I must say that it does vary depending on the light on the day. It depends on the lens you're using, the aperture you're using. A lot of things do have an effect on the discrepancy in exposure, but to my way of thinking there shouldn't be any difference, whereas there is. Now, I did a lot of investigation into this. There was nothing on YouTube that I could find. There was nothing on the internet that I could find. So a lot of in-depth work went into this, and I actually ended up looking at a later camera. It's only about 3 years later than the DF, which is a D800. And I actually went into their manual, and believe it or not, and I'm going to scroll down to page 55, and believe it or not, I found this, and it's under exposure, and it says depending on the scene, which is basically what I said, depending on the light you have, exposure may differ from that which would be obtained when live view is not used. So that is basically saying exactly what I'm saying, that there is that discrepancy between the two. And it goes on to say metering in live view is adjusted to suit the live view display, producing photographs with exposure close to what the scene in the monitor, or what is seen in the monitor. Now, something I haven't tried, which I should have done, and if you've got this problem you could try it. So does that mean if you turn the actual monitor brightness down, it adjusts the exposure? Now that's something I'm going to have a look at, but you should it shouldn't be that way. I mean, you know, very often you have the monitor as bright as you can, because on sunny days that's the only way you can see it. Nikon are actually admitting, to my way of thinking, that there is a problem there. It's a problem that is not insurmountable, but it's a problem nevertheless. So I'm just going to read that again to you. Depending on the scene, exposure may differ from that which would be obtained when live view is not used. Metering in live view is adjusted to suit the live view display, producing photographs with exposure close to what is seen in the monitor. So at least that's given me an explanation. Probably not a very satisfactory one, but at least it's told me there's nothing wrong with the camera. Now, have they cured this problem? Have any of you having this problem on a later camera? I would absolutely love to know if you are, or whether Nikon have actually got their heads around it and sorted it out, because really they should do. So yeah, if you're having this problem and you've been looking for an answer, I hope this has helped. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. I do a lot of videos on my abstract photography, and occasionally I do videos like this when I think it may help people out. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. Until the next time, this is John Dexter saying bye for now.